Hi guys, Michael with ownerbuilderclass.com here. So one of the frequent questions I get from people that are building their own home is, how much should the foundation cost for my new home? Or I got a bid for the shell of the home. Is this a good price? So today I want to share with you some interesting cost numbers relating to the building of a new home in the US. Now we're going to dive into the latest numbers released earlier this year based on a huge builder survey. They sent out 4,000 surveys, or almost 4,000, to get the data. I want to break down the cost per major building phase of a new home, including site work, foundation, the shell of the home, the mechanical rough-ins, and interior finishes. We'll also discuss the average builder markup for these builders and what they're using, and talk about the cost per square foot to build a new home based on these surveys. So let's dig right in. First, let me tell you a little bit about the survey. It was conducted by the National Association of Home Builders, also called the NAHB. Now, as I mentioned, they sent out almost 4,000 surveys and ended up using the most detailed 49 surveys from the builders across the country to create this data. Now, the average home size built was 2,561 square feet. The average construction cost breakdown, including labor and materials for these builders, were as follows. They start with a category called site work. Now, I personally think a better term would be pre-construction costs. Now, this category includes permits, impact fees, water and sewer fees, architecture, and engineering, and these cost items average $29,000 or 7.4% of the total cost of the construction of each new home. And if you don't already know what impact fees are, they're fees charged by the local municipalities to cover extra strain from the occupants and new occupants of the new home for schools, roads, emergency response, and so on. Now, moving on to the foundation, which includes excavation, foundation, concrete, and backfill, basically everything to get the foundation ready to frame on, was $43,000 or 11% of the total cost to build a house. Now, let me say that percentages of these categories of the total construction costs will help anyone thinking of building a home to check their costs against. Now, you can compare your cost with these percentages to give you an indication if your bids are fair and to make sure you're not being gouged by a contractor. We provide these kinds of tips to our students throughout our self-paced online course at ownerbuilderclass.com. So back to the cost breakdowns, we see the shell of the home, including framing, windows, exterior doors, siding, and roofing, comes in at $126,000 or 32% of the total cost of construction. Now, the shell of the home is by far the most expensive component of the home. Mechanical rough-ins were $70,000 or 17.9% of the total cost of the construction of the home. And next, interior finishes, including insulation and drywall, although I wouldn't normally include those, they did. Insulation, drywall, paint, cabinets, flooring, all of the other interior finishes were $94,000 or 24% of the total cost of construction. Driveways, $8,775 or 2.2% of the cost. Now, just to reiterate, these numbers include the cost of materials and labor. So this is a very interesting look into professional home builder cost numbers to get a better understanding of what you're paying for in a new home. Now, these numbers create a baseline for you to compare your bids to, and if your numbers are way higher, you may want to keep looking for a better price. Now, keep in mind, the numbers just discussed are for labor and material only. We haven't included the builder profit or their overheads just yet. The total cost to build a home across these builders surveyed, including labor and materials and financing, because most of you guys are going to need a construction loan to build your home. The total was $404,433 for an average home size of 2,561 square feet. Again, this includes labor, materials, and financing for the project. Now, obviously, this doesn't include the land cost. I can show you two lots within a few miles of each other in my location that vary in price from $25,000 all the way up to close to $1 million, depending on the location, the view, the size, utilities, and so on. So it really doesn't make sense to include the lot cost here. So if we do the math on the square footage and total cost of construction, we end up with a cost per square foot of $158. Now, the people in California are saying, no way I can build a home for that. While the folks that are living in New Mexico watching this video are saying, that's way too much. So remember, these are numbers from builders building homes all across the country, and they're really an average. So there are obvious cost differences from one location to another based on the cost of labor in your area, materials, building codes, and so on. Now let's take a look at the markup these builders used on the homes that they built. So breaking down the numbers, we see the markup was 31.079%. In other words, the builder marked up their costs a little over 31% to get to the final sale price that they charge their customers. So let's crunch the numbers to better understand what that really means. Now, with a total average house cost, including labor, materials, and financing, of $404,433, the builder markup would be $125,695 on a sales price of just over $530,000. So the customers paid the builder almost $126,000 for them to manage the project for them. Now, I know some of you guys are trying to decide whether you want to build your own home and act as your own general contractor. So I want to share with you guys a comment we recently had from a person who did just that. Mrs. Teague says, "We are finishing up our new house, and I will say that we absolutely were hesitant about subbing our new house out. But it's been awesome, and we're all in around $112 a square foot. Now, we could have come in much cheaper, but we decided to upgrade to a higher level of windows and insulation and installed real hardwood. Would never use a builder again." Now, clearly she had a great experience. That's not to say that everyone does, but with proper planning, the process becomes much more predictable and manageable. If any of you guys would like to learn more about how to go about building a new home through the eyes of a professional builder, I would encourage you to stop by our website at ownerbuilderclass.com. Thanks for watching.